Yeah, all right. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Motor City Metrics. It's been a minute. I don't know the last time we all got together, probably right after the end of the regular season.
Mm-hmm.
I think so, yeah.
So yeah, we didn't come back for the playoffs, which of course the Dodgers won in 5 games, even though they outscored the Yankees by 1 run. Kind of an interesting series for sure. But yeah, I am Chris Brown. Alongside me, we've got Yoop, we've got Mike Papchek. I don't know if Rogelio is coming tonight or not. He's been inundated with a whole bunch of work. They're sending him off to Seattle. He just found out 2 days ago or yesterday. So he may be overwhelmed with that stuff. But we're gonna come here. We're talking. We haven't been doing regular shows because not a whole lot of stuff to talk about. But I guess we wanted to touch on a little bit of it before it all gets forgotten, I suppose. But yeah, I don't know if you guys had any particular issues that were you're burning to talk about. I threw some things down on the agenda here on my paper, but I didn't share it with anybody. So
I think people are starting to at least dabble in speculation now. Hot stove will heat up. The quotes, or not necessarily quotes, but some of the insight from some of the writers who've heard things like about the non-competitive offer to Skubal.
Yeah,
and that's certainly something that's probably at the forefront. And you got cool stuff like Josue Brasino winning a Triple Crown today, which doesn't happen every day.
No, it doesn't. Yeah, that was that one's been kind of fun to follow and to post those videos because outside of a lot of hardcore Tigers minor league type people, that he's just not somebody that many people have heard of because he had only played in low A and really only played 25 games this year because of injuries. But it's been a lot of fun. So yeah, I mean, I should remind everybody to like and subscribe and all that stuff, right? Follow us on Patreon. Go make your bets at our favorite gambling sites. Sorry, I don't have any of the information to hit the adverts and stuff. But
find us on Blue Sky, right? Everybody's going to Blue Sky today.
Well, I mean, we've been at Blue Sky since last March. Yes. We just haven't been posting much. We had I don't know if Motor City Metrics is there. Tigers Minor League Report has been there since last March. Or no, last June, I think. Everybody's going there, and it's fun over there. There's some really nice features at Blue Sky. I don't think they have a feature to stream like Twitter X does. We have this kind of playing along our Twitter account, which people can tune into. But I would assume at some point that's coming. So it's another social media platform, and there are no ads right now, which is nice.
That's like my least favorite thing about podcasting, man. I feel so old when it comes to social media. Like I don't even have an Instagram account. So like when it comes to everybody's like, oh, go to Blue Sky. I'm just like, I can't do another one. I'm so comfortable with. I'm set my ways with that stuff, man.
Yeah, well, and I guess there's nothing super concrete to talk about, so we can discuss this. But yeah, when that was really when the wave was going there. And I found myself, kind of disillusioned with Twitter as well. With a lot of people, it's just a strange place now. With the For You feed is just weird viral videos that I don't really want to see, but somehow they're just oh, look at this guy get punched. I'm like, well, I don't want to. What? That's not for me. Why is that for me? And ads everywhere and stuff like that, and. But I'm old enough now that I've lived through several iterations of message boards where they have their own kind of life cycle. There's a lifespan for these things where it's like a fledgling community, and then it hits its stride, and there's lots of action and everybody's enjoying it, and then lots of inside jokes and funny things happen, and it's great fun. And then over time, I don't know if it gets overrun with trolls or people stop caring or they stop updating things or nobody can fund it anymore and you move on to a new message board or something. And I found myself, and I think I would consider myself probably a Twitter addict. I just grab my phone, I check what's up, I update. And I'm like, do I really want to just switch that addiction to a new platform, or should I try to kick this all together?
It's the same reason why I don't like nicotine patches, man. Like, why replace cigarettes with something else? I just feel like you're moving the problem. It's the same principle. I get it. I agree.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the Stan says I love X. I get news there quicker than any other platform, and that's always been the great benefit of Twitter, right? Was that You get news basically immediately, updates, links to articles. But in the past year or so, they took away the links, like direct links. They're hidden on the screen now. You click on it or whatever, but it looks just like a picture now. There's just a lot of functionality there that I don't know, a lot of people aren't happy with. But in any event, if you're on Blue Sky, we're on there. Like I said, at least Tigers Minor League Report, Rogelio's on there. I'm on there. Jerry's on there. And I mostly just been double posting, for the Tigers Minor League Report. Videos that I put there, I put on Blue Sky just so people know we're there. But in any event, follow us on those. Always like our YouTube videos, right? Subscribe. But yeah, so the main, I guess, topics, and you already touched this on this, Yoop, was the GM meetings took place, which is, there's never a ton of stuff that goes down at the GM meetings. Like, we talked about last year, I think the Mark Canha trade was made before then, and we've seen some small signings. Seems like the Angels are really adding to the bottom of the roster. But mostly I think the GM meetings are kind of like when you and your buddies in your fantasy league get together. There's probably just a lot of drinking and joking and, trade discussion, but nothing really going down. And Scott Boras got to give us a handful of his ridiculous Borisisms. I thought he could have done better. But I do love, they're always so absurd.
Yes.
But like as far as Tigers news, like the only news that came out, Scott Harris talked, I think, I don't know how long, but basically the only news items that came out of that were that Kenta Maeda and Matt Manning are going to compete for starting roles next year. That was like that's basically what Scott Harris said. And that doesn't surprise me. He's not going to come out and say like, hey, here's our plans. Here's here's what we're looking to do. And I don't know about those two particular news items. If you guys have any thoughts whatsoever, if you think it actually is true or if it means anything.
I think they'll get their innings in the spring, and if one of them impresses and nobody else rises up and absolutely claims the spot, sure, it could happen. Manning has some ability, whether you like his overall stuff or not. He never tends to get shelled completely into next week when he's out there. So, teams need guys like that. Maeda, boy, I'll tell you, I don't know. He had to say it. I agree with you. What else was he going to say? They have him under contract. They might as well ship him out there in March and see what the hell happens. But he sure looked like he was a long way from competitive last year. There just wasn't a lot there to say, oh, hey, we can hang our hat on that and move forward. He might be done. Sometimes guys are.
Yeah, what about you, Mike? You have any thoughts about Maeda and Manning?
It's two sides of the spectrum of why they're both going to get a chance. And it comes down to money, I think. Kenta Maeda is the $24 million mistake that you made last year, right? You kind of have no choice because you have that money going to him no matter what. So, yeah, of course that he's going to get a chance. And I think that he's going to get a lot longer of a leash than Matt Manning, because Matt Manning is making $800,000. But my whole point, the relevance with that is, it's just nice to have a really cheap possible starting pitching option just chilling there, right? It's unfortunately what I see is like the fallback to a free agency maybe gone wrong, not going the way you wanted it to. At least we got Matt Manning. I don't know. That's kind of the way I look at Matt Manning being on the roster in any way, really.
Yeah, the Manning stuff, and they said, they want him to start. We've talked a bunch about, maybe it's just time to go to the bullpen, dude. But again, I don't think they're ever going to turn down cheap depth. With Maeda, the specific thing they said was they're gonna help him with his offseason. Basically, they're saying that he was not in shape last year when he came into camp. And that's kind of been the story on him forever. It's not necessarily not in shape, but he gains velocity over the course of the year.
Mm-hmm.
And basically they're like, you're not going to do that this year. You're going to be fully ready by spring training. I don't know if it'll matter. But yeah, I don't know. Again, this is the exciting storylines we have to talk about right now. Is that I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. Maeda get 6 starts in spring training, and if he looks better, he'll probably get start the year in the rotation. And if it goes south, probably go back to the bullpen. And if he still sucks, he's probably gone. But there's not much else to say about him right now, particularly if you're the GM. You're not going to he's a Boris client. You're not going to fire him at the GM meetings when you're trying to talk to other Boris clients. Although, speaking of Boris clients, that was the two other kind of stories that came out of that. Although both are from an Evan Petzold article, and they aren't quotes. They aren't attributed to anybody. That's not to say that he's making them up, right? Evan's a very good reporter. It's just this is scuttlebutt. Basically, he's hearing from other people who are saying, the Tigers didn't give Skubal a competitive offer, and that they're not pursuing Bregman. That's probably true. At the same time, there's you always have to think about the motivations of other people. Yep. There's always a reason for agents to say, oh, they're not giving us enough money, and or I don't know. I don't think they're going to cite it's just they're all trying to get an edge somehow, and Evan's smart enough to piece through that and know what's real and what isn't. But I still, it's so early. I don't think they would come right out and say, yeah, we're going to sign Bregman, or they'd be like, yeah, we made Skubal an offer. He didn't like it. That's not what's going to happen.
And when you're in a negotiation, I mean, there's always that push and pull between the two sides. Obviously, the Tigers probably aren't going to come out with their Godfather offer right out of the gates, and it's to the Skubal camps. Makes sense for them to say, well, that's not close. Screw that. I mean, your first offer, no. Yeah. So it's early in the process. Assuming they just started in this offseason, maybe they've had some talks over the course of the last few months that we don't know about. But in terms of calling it a non-competitive offer, well, let's just say for the sake of argument, it was genuinely a non-competitive offer in the eyes of the Skubal camp. Do you think it was money per season or years on the deal or both?
My guess is if it were one of them, it was probably number of years.
Mm-hmm.
And again, like you said, as fans, you try to say, okay, well, we definitely want Skubal. He's the Cy Young winner, or he's going to be soon. And he's awesome. He's homegrown, and he's a star, and we got to keep players like that. And so they just need to do whatever it takes to sign him. That's just not the way the front office works. This front office works. Mm-hmm. We've said it many, many times. I just don't get the sense that Scott Harris, regardless of whatever Chris Ilitch wants to invest, he may be willing to invest hundreds of millions of dollars in a player. I don't think Scott Harris is that type of president to sign anybody to a 4, 5, 6 year deal, unless it's one of those Colt Keith deals, right? Where he's very young and you're getting him through his entire 20s and maybe his early 30s. He just doesn't strike me. Maybe if they're closer and they just need one player to get him over the top. But I don't know. I don't look at him as the guy who's going to build a foundation by spending tons of money on long-term deals for players who are well into their decline phase. And that sucks. But I just feel like that's who I shouldn't even say that sucks, right? That's just not the way that fans want things to be. Fans, especially Tigers fans who have seen success, most of us, the success we saw was that run from 2006 to 2014, which was heavily driven by big, expensive free agent signings and stars, and it worked out. And then you look at the Dodgers and the Mets and the Yankees, 3 of the 4 finalists this year, and they're all super bloated payrolls, and it just feels like that's the way to win. But I don't think that that's Scott Harris's MO.
No, and I actually think that that's going to be. I think that's why we're hearing already that they're not really in on Alex Bregman, is because by all accounts we're seeing Alex Bregman is looking for 6, 7, 8 year deal. And I mean, in the case of Alex Bregman, I've been thinking about this a lot. I mentioned it. I was watching you guys when you guys got together last time. Talked about free agents a little bit. I'm actually a little afraid of the idea of signing Alex Bregman to a 7-year deal anyway. I can see years 35, 36, and 37 just being maybe not. I mean, I'm not saying as bad as Miggy was at the end, but I could just see. I don't want another guy declining bloated contracts. We've seen enough of that. I mean, that's the fan in me. I'll be honest.
Well, yeah, I mean, you think that a guy who had one of his lowest on base percentages last year, had the entire first half where he just stunk. and he's going to be hitting 30. And you're right, Mike.
Swung way more than he ever has last year at pitches outside the zone, and his bat speed just dropped. It just fell off a cliff last year. And I'm not saying that those things are concrete. He's definitely going to decline. But what my worry is he has peaked already, and it's possible that this past season is more what you'd see from him. I don't know. I've been thinking a lot about this Alex Bregman thing because I've been called an idiot in some circles just because people are like, "What do you mean? Like Bregman's an immediate upgrade?" And those people are not wrong when they say that. Bregman would absolutely be an upgrade. I'll say that the fan in me is scarred by Jordan Zimmerman, by Javier Baez, by unfortunately Miguel Cabrera. Like it's just every time the Tigers go big on a free agent signing, I just feel like we're sitting at the end of it like, oh my God, when is this over? And the fan in me, it's hard for me to look past that, even when I'm trying to be as logical as I can be. I'm still a fan, still in my mind.
And that's where we are with Skubal, right? He's 27. You're looking at 2 more years of control, so you get him through 29. He's 27, right? I'm not.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought, okay. Had that moment of panic. You have him controlled until he's 29. Any extension now, you're going to get basically probably age 30 through 35 if they want 5 more years tacked onto that thing. And now we're talking about a guy who really has had 1 1/3. We had 1.4 good seasons, right? He was wonderful this season. He had a good half season less than last year. He's been dominant, but you're paying up for basically that relatively short resume of excellence versus the 2 major injuries that he's already suffered on that arm. So, if the Tigers aren't going to pull the trigger on a massive deal for him, they have some things where they can point to and say, well, this is why we're not giving him 6 years and $230 million or whatever heck he wants. So I don't know. I would love to know what the non-competitive offer was, if it's true, to really gauge where their interest starts. We're not going to know that most likely, but right now, what are the options? They just play it out for 2 years with him and let him go, and you get a draft pick. Okay. They have him until the trade deadline of 2026 if they want. They can always move him for something pretty good, most likely, at any point between now and then. Or they roll the dice and they make this big Godfather deal that he can't turn down. I don't know which one is the safest route, but I'm not sure it's that big contract.
I don't know. I mean, fan in me is going to say the contract. You can go ahead, Chris. For some reason, I just feel strongly they drafted this guy, like, pay him. He wants. Go ahead.
Yeah, the way, and I hate to continue saying this because we said it a bunch and we had some pushback, but I just really feel like Scott Harris wants to kind of run the Tigers the way that Cleveland and Milwaukee are run. And what that means is that, it doesn't mean that you don't ever sign anybody. Cleveland is kind of notoriously cheap, and the Brewers have, made some runs, but they don't really spend big in free agency. But what it means is that you don't ever sign the Cy Young guy.
Mm-hmm.
You don't sign the MVP. You develop them. You're the team that drafts those guys, develops them, makes them, and then you trade them or you let them hit free agency down the road. That's going back to CeCe Sabathia and Cliff Lee, and you got Corbin Burns, and those markets. It feels like the Tigers, and they absolutely can. They can invest money and keep these guys if they want, but it just doesn't seem like that's their MO. And I guess I will refer people back to Scott Harris's opening press conference. People have gone back to that a bunch, and they always bring up, what he talked about. And I don't know what comes to your mind when you think about that.
Control the zone.
Control the zone. That's what everybody, dominate the strike zone, right? That's what everybody remembers. That was actually his 3rd point. He had 3 points. The first one was that they need to acquire, develop, and retain good young players. And I think that's I think so far Scott Harris has told us what he wanted to do, and he's shown it to us. And everybody, we're still kind of like, I don't know, because we haven't seen anything. Like, is he going to sign these big free agents? I don't think so. I think he's serious when he's talking about not blocking young players, and I think that extends beyond Jace Young. I think it's like, I think he believes in their development system, and I think he believes in having kind of a pipeline of talent to the big leagues, and not to say that he won't make small moves to improve here and there,
right?
But I don't think he's going to do anything like sign a 5-year deal to block a potential Jace Young or Hao Lee or Josue Briseño. Like, I just feel like that's the way they want to run this organization is through their own homegrown talent. And then if you build the farm system strong enough, you can go out and acquire those players that you need at the trade deadline. You can be the buyer finally. You don't necessarily have to spend, $200 million on an ace. You go trade for the ace who's about to be a free agent, and he's the one who carries you into the postseason. I feel like that's the plan, and I guess until we see otherwise, I don't know. I think that's just the way it's going to be.
And, a lot depends too, in regards to specifically this offseason. And also maybe even you can extrapolate it to how long they want to keep Skubal around. If it's just 2 more years and see how that works out. They were 86 and 76 this year. And again, Bill Parcells is a different sport, but he always said you are what your record says you are, right? I'm not sure that applies always to baseball because we've had the Pythagorean record around for a long time. We kind of know what that means. The Tigers had such a tremendous finish last year. It does feel like I'm not 100% sure they're an 86-win team. If we were making a projection for next year right now, I don't think I'd say 86 or more. I'd probably be under that by a fair amount, actually. So, adding these premium free agents in this free agent class, where there are some questionable guys, to be honest with you. I mean, is Rhys Hoskins going to turn this around? I mean, turn this to another level? I don't know. I kind of doubt it. Santander, maybe, but he also might hit 220. But what I'm getting at is they may not be good enough right now for that massive investment. They may need to stick with the plan of developing these young players and putting them in positions to succeed and seeing where this goes and waiting for McGonigal and Clark because they could get here quick, And that would probably lend itself to a Skubal deal, to be honest, and adding more young players and just making it such a pile of young players that they will build a winner out of that. But again, if they really think they're an 86-win team and they're one step away from being a 92-win team, well, then that's different. But I would question if they believe that in an honest moment.
Yeah, but in most of the projections I've seen so far, which are it's still just based on the end of last season's roster. Nobody's changed rosters enough. They're projected for 81 wins next year. Yeah. So we know that they caught some weird juju in a bottle last year and it was great. But yeah, I think the overall talent level maybe doesn't justify going all in. And as you said, like some of these young guys could move very quickly. And I think, a lot of us, we're just under the impression that you got to do this in the next 2 years before you lose Skubal. And I think they're like, they may think that they'll just go ahead and develop another Skubal. Yeah. That's hubris. It's hard to develop a pitcher this good, let alone multiple pitchers. But if they feel like they can do it, or they can, recreate Skubal in the aggregate in a Moneyball way, then they may do that.
Interview.
Yeah. Now I don't, and it's tough because I picture a scenario where this upcoming season, I would rather not go through another trade deadline where you're contemplating trading Skubal. That would probably indicate that the Tigers are actually very, playing very poorly. Mm-hmm. But then you're going into the following year, and do you keep them and make a run and just pitch as well as you can, or do you try to trade them before you get all you can get for them is a draft pick? I don't know. That's a tough one. Like I think it really depends on how competitive they are. Because you remember Garrett Cole with the Astros. Mm-hmm. He was an impending free agent, and there was just kind of, it almost felt like 2 minutes after the end of that, was it that they lost in the World Series? I think it was.
Yeah.
He like had a different hat. He had like a Boris Corp hat on or something like that. And everybody's like, oh, well, he's not coming back to the Astros.
No, he's not.
But yeah, I don't know.
And there's always, everybody, and I mean, me included, I would love to see them strike a big deal, whether it's free agency or a trade in the offseason, because talking about that stuff in the offseason is one of the best parts of being a baseball fan, right? But I mentioned this a few weeks back. It may end up being that, they go to spring training with having made kind of blasé moves similar to what they did this year and play out the first half of the season with the young guys and see where they are in July. And maybe that's when they make the moves that are difference making, when they're trying to build a roster to make a rush in August and September and hopefully into October. And we all love it to get done now, but there may be a long game being played there and wait until midsummer.
Well, but like, I don't know, something just doesn't sit right with what Chris said. Chris said that, like, based on last year, Tigers are an 81-win team. So what that's telling me is if they do decide to go after some guys and they sign some decent players, 81-win team adding 4 decent free agents and a couple depth guys, like that's a 90-win team, I guess, is just, I mean, logically on paper, of course. So, like, that's kind of where I think some people get a little upset, is just like, it feels like a possibility is there, and the Tigers are just like, we'll see if it works out for us. When I think part of it is just we're used to seeing them just go for it, Not saying it's the right move, but it's just logically, it seems like a 90-win. It almost feels like a 91 win season, projected season, is just pretty easily bought right now. And is that the right move? I don't know. But, I mean, fans are always going to want right now. And I think that's what people are thinking.
And I hear what you're saying. I do. But when you see them projected at 81 wins, I always think, especially with the political season we were just in, and we were all watching those polls, right? And we hear margin of error all the time. So when they say 81 wins, to me, that means 76 to 83 or 84 wins somewhere.
Oh, absolutely. Right. No, and I'm not saying that these projections mean anything. I'm just saying, like gut reaction. As soon as Chris said 81, I'm like, that's not really that far from 90 without any free agents, any trades, Like, again, is it the right move? No, we're seeing the literal opposite of what we saw the last time the Tigers made the playoffs. And that's, we're going to worry about our farm system and we're not going to trade it away for rental guys. So it's the clear opposite end. It's just, this is new waters for me too. Go ahead, Chris. Sorry.
Well, no, I think you're making a great point too. I mean, it's one of those things where I really do feel like they ended up being competitive before they expected. Mm-hmm. And so as fans, we naturally want to, okay, let's take the next step. And I think the organization may know that not necessarily that they're really that close. But I also think, like, the way, again, the way Harris views it, I think, is that he thinks that they can get a decent bit better just by having their young players that much older and more experienced. Now, I don't know how many more wins you're thinking there. I don't, who knows if they think Riley Green's going to take another giant leap forward, or, Colt Keith's going to take a huge step up, or they can get Torque back to, Sweeney. There's a lot of question marks there that I think, I don't know. I mean, we talked about it at the end of the season. It's like, you're kind of in a tough situation with players like Sweeney and Dingler, because they came up and, they did some good things, but they, it was hard to say, hey, these guys are absolutely key pieces of the future. And same with Jace Young, right? Like, you saw some flashes and you'd like to see them get some more playing time, but I don't know, it was like not enough for them to say, hey, these guys are or aren't part of the future. And so you're kind of caught in between there. You don't want to immediately replace all those guys unless you're absolutely sure that they're not part of the future. And then that brings us to, like, Spencer Torkelson, who I don't think he's a huge part of the future, but who knows? They may still think that there's a chance, and there's no, real harm in bringing him back and giving him another opportunity because he's still, I believe, pre-arb, right? So he's still very inexpensive. So yeah, I just feel like they're in kind of like this gray area right now where they could go for it, but I almost feel like they want like another year to really get their bearings.
And that's also where I could see them having a little of both. Really investing in a high quality pitcher this winter. Somebody, maybe not quite on the Max Fried level, but why not Max Fried, right?
Mm-hmm.
Someone like that who really he's paired with Skubal, and you got Jackson Jobe on the precipice. Hopefully, you have that pitching staff. We saw how they performed down the stretch for the Tigers. That gives these young hitters more time to progress. So they know more about what they have with Jace Young. They may get that next step, which I really think they need from Riley Green. You might get a next step from Parker Meadows and Colt Keith, as you mentioned. So they may have the offense there that we don't see it yet because we're still a few months away from where that next hopeful growth spurt from some of those hitters comes in.
Well, I thought Justin Henry the Malloy took we talked about it. He took a step, but God, I just wish he had a defensive position. Like no offense to him, like at all. I'm super happy, but why is it that the guy that doesn't play the defensive position that we need happened to be the guy that looks like, I don't know. I've been thinking about it a lot. If Justin Henry Malloy could play just a lick of defense, I'd be way more excited about his whole little breakout in the postseason. But it just any of the other guys, like couldn't have been Young. I don't know, man.
Yeah, I you always hope that there's with someone like Malloy, if they say, hey, you're going to have a job here if you do this, if you lose 15 pounds and get more athletic and agile in the outfield, something like that, right? Like that's doable. Everybody's different. Their bodies are different. Maybe Malloy is already, a workout warrior and there's just nothing he can do about it. But you see it in basketball all the time, right? Guys will be like, oh, you had to add 20 pounds of muscle this year so you could get down there and bang around with the power forwards. Like it's possible. But yeah, like, I don't know. It was one of those weird things where, they threw in the towel. They were going to play the kids, and then the kids wouldn't stop winning. And then, and you're in those situations where like, well, we can't, they didn't play Dingler at all in the playoffs because he's not ready for that. And they couldn't really play him down the stretch much because they're like, well, we got to win all these games. Like they believe in him and they believe in certain aspects, but they're trying to win every game. And so yeah, they kind of screwed themselves by being better than they thought. And I anticipated that we'd be talking about this because I suppose I did steer it in this direction. But in the, when Rogelio and I occasionally talk to each other on the phone and just having discussions, it reminded me of the year 2015, which is, a decade ago now, basically. And I don't know if people remember exactly that year of baseball. That was the Tigers' year was not great, but two teams that the, kind of the brass of the Tigers are intimately familiar with, exploded into being good after being bad for several years. The Cubs took this giant leap forward and from 2014 to 2015. I think they won 30 more games. I wrote it down here. They were 73 and 89 in 2014, and they went 97 and 65 in 2015. So 24 wins. And the Astros were 70 and 92 in 2014, and then 86 and 76, familiar record, the next year, and they made the playoffs. Scott Harris was with that Cubs team at the time, so you would think he would be a little bit more inclined to follow that blueprint. But of course, AJ Hinch was there with the Astros, and it's like it reminds me of two different ways to go about it. The Cubs, I guess, both of those teams had really good young farm talent coming up. The Cubs had drafted Chris Bryant, had Javier Baez coming up. They had
Rizzo.
Yeah, they had Rizzo. They had with the Phillips or Addison Russell, who jerked himself out of the game.
Yes.
A bunch of young talent, and the Astros had Correa, and they had Altuve coming up, and they hadn't even drafted Bregman yet, but Springer. So the Cubs kind of it was like they foresaw that rise coming, they went out and they signed John Lester to a big deal. But after that, they didn't do a whole heck of a lot for that 2015 season. And then they got really good. Bryant was like an MVP level player. Baez came up and had a great year. So then they went all in.
Mm-hmm.
When you win 97 games, you're a World Series contender. And they went all in. They went and signed, who did they sign? Hayward to the giant deal. They also signed Ben Zobrist and John Lackey. And then they made the big trade at the deadline for Aroldis Chapman, right? They gave up Gleyber Torres and was it just Gleyber Torres or was it Dylan Cease too? Or no, Cease was in the trade for whatever, the pitcher to the White Sox the next year. But yeah, they went for it. They went all in. They spent a lot of money. They made trades, and then they won the World Series. But that was a 97 win team, right? This feels more like the 86 win Astros. And I went through and looked, and they didn't sign anybody the next two seasons. They didn't make the playoffs in 2016. I'm looking at who they signed. They signed like Colby Rasmus and Jed Lowry, and they got like Doug Fister's final decent year. But they did not sign any big free agents. They did it almost entirely from within until, they had that kind of disappointing trade deadline. And then they went out and they traded for Justin Verlander. They used their prospect depth to go trade for Justin Verlander. He got him over the top. They won. And I feel like that's sort of what the Tigers are going for, that they're just going to build completely from within. And then once it's time to go, they'll have the prospect depth to do it. Rather than signing the big free agents. But
so Max Fried can be their John Lester this year.
There you go. It's yes. You could argue that this is the Cubs for the Tigers version of that Cubs 2015 season, maybe, where it's like, okay, it's time to go. But to me,
I think you're onto something.
That may be a couple of years down the road with Clark and McGonigal and Lorenzo and Briseño, and obviously not all these guys are going to work out. But if a few of them do, they're all very good prospects. If a few of them do work out, and they continue to draft and develop the way they have been the last few years, they're going to have the prospect capital to make those big trades that they need to get them over the top. And I feel like that's the path forward for them. And it's kind of a bummer for fans, right? Because you don't get that instant satisfaction. And I'm sure the season ticket people trying to sell those packages would love if they go out and sign Juan Soto. But I just don't see it happen.
Oh, even Bregman would do it, right?
No, any big free agent would get, I think, the season tickets they'd start calling in. But I don't think that's their priority right now.
Well, and as we all know, as you mentioned, you kind of just barely touched on it there. I'm willing to say right now that Arizona Fall League Triple Crown is a guarantee of a Hall of Fame career.
Well, so yes. We should, we could pivot away from this because it's slightly depressing. And again, all we're doing is talking about nothing. Nothing has happened. We're just speculating on what might happen. And tomorrow they might go and sign, spend $250 million in free agency. We go, well, okay, so much for that, and we'll have something fun to talk about. But for now, Josue Briseño went out and had arguably one of the greatest AFL campaigns ever, and they Scottsdale, the Scorpions, won their final 7 games to now they're playing tomorrow. It's the way the AFL works. There's 6 teams. And they have it now where the team with the best record basically gets a 1 day off bye, and the next 2 teams play. It's a play-in game to see who's going to make it in the finals. And Scottsdale went on this epic run, and so now we get at least one more game, and he'll probably play in that. So, definitely fun to see. But what did he ended up finishing? Let me look at the stats.
10 dingers, 27 ribbies.
Yeah, I'm just looking for the average because that was kind of remarkable. Yeah, so 433.
Nice.
At 433, 509, 867, 39 hits in 90 at-bats, 5 doubles, 2 triples, 10 homers, 27 RBIs, 15 walks, 21 strikeouts, no stolen bases. What a bum. It's we've talked about it. We talked about it, like a month ago? Jeff Larish put up those crazy numbers in the AFL.
Yes, he did.
It is an excellent environment for hitting. It's a terrible environment for pitching. You have to take these numbers with some skepticism, just because it's just the environment there. At the same time, he's the 9th player ever, at least since 1999. I couldn't find stats before 1999 to have double-digit home runs in a single AFL season. He's the first ever Triple Crown winner in like 30 years of doing this. Maybe I think it's 30.
And some of those guys played in a 40-game season there.
Yeah.
Right?
And
they used to play 40.
He's also 20 years old and 1 month old. Like he is I was looking, he's the third youngest player since that I could find to hit more than six home runs or more in the Arizona Fall League. The only two players who did it who were younger than him were Ronald Acuna Jr. and Bryce Harper.
They're good.
Yeah. And yeah, they're pretty damn good. And then you look at it. So, okay, it's this crazy offensive environment. Nobody else hit more than 6 home runs. Now, Kemp Alderman hit those 6 home runs in like 10 games, and then he went and got married like a fool. Let's see how many. Kemp Alderman, 9 games, 6 home runs in 9 games. So,
Alderman.
like all triple crowns, it takes a little bit of luck, right? The other guy, Otto Kemp, who was ahead of Briseño in RBIs for a little bit, he also went off to get married, I think. So Briseño had the benefit of being 20 and not engaged and continuing to play. But yeah, just a really remarkable effort there, and certainly something that's fun to project him going forward. And I really do think he's a very good prospect. The only thing I'm worried about him, and it's kind of a slight worry, is just how he'll perform against truly like elite velocity, 95, 96 plus. Because he didn't see a ton of that in the AFL. You see some of it, but
yeah, he hasn't gotten the steady dose of it yet.
Yeah,
you see that. Well, it's interesting. All these young guys, what it means for the future. I used to follow the AFL really close. 1 year Virgil Vasquez brought his team to the finals, I believe.
Yeah.
So it's all grain of salt stuff, but I think your point about his age, especially, is the important factor there. I'm sorry, my dog is losing her mind over here. But
yes, I
her
totally
name is
understand.
Sweet Lou. Everybody give her a break. She got Tiger-related
Sweet Lou.
games.
Oh.
So anyway, it makes me think back to the Midwest League in the mid 2000s when Gorkis Hernandez won the MVP, and
over Justin Upton, was it?
In that, I think so. And in that time frame, that 5 or 6 year time frame, other MVPs of the Midwest League were Albert Pujols, Joe Mauer, Adam Dunn, and a couple other studs, right? And I remember looking at that list saying, Gorkis Hernandez won the same award. That's pretty good. And of course, that means nothing. So,
well, yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. When I tweeted out all the other players who have hit double-digit home runs in the AFL, and everybody's like, this doesn't fill me with, doesn't inspire me. Let's say, who is it? It's you got Brandon Wood, who put a one of the most epic minor league seasons ever, and then washed out because he couldn't stop striking out and swinging at stuff, and so that and the signs were there. Like in retrospect, you could say, okay, the signs were definitely there. He was striking out a lot, but he hit 14 home runs. Mike Olt hit 13 home runs. He's another guy who washed out in the big leagues. Tyler Flowers hit 12. He's had the best career out of any of these guys, and it was mostly on defense, right? It's kind of the defensive home run catcher.
Yep.
Tag Bozide, who never even made the big leagues. I think he signed out of independent league ball.
He's selling insurance in Spokane these days.
You got Hank Blaylock. Hank Blaylock had a decent, albeit short, big league career, I think.
Injuries, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
He was, let's see, I'm looking. I remember him with the Rangers. Yeah, 13 and a half WAR.
Did he have a big home run in the All-Star game?
That sounds plausible. So, yeah, I mean, like Hank Blaylock at age 22 for the Rangers hit 300 with 29 home runs. That's kind of remarkable for a rookie. I guess he wasn't technically a rookie. That's the problem. He had played 49 games a year before, but first-year player, his first 2 years, 61 home runs, good for 11 WAR in his first 2 years, and then, basically completely fell apart. But so that was a good sign there. Then you got Grant Desmay, who's one of the great stories of all time. He had a great AFL. He was a monster player, and then he went off to join a monastery or whatever. He became a monk. He quit baseball, and then he showed back up in baseball like 12 years later. It's like a 33-year-old or something like that, and played some like one season of independent ball, and that was it. What do you call it? Yeah, what is it? It's not a monastery, right? Where do monks go? Where do you go to become a?
Yeah, it's a monastery.
Is it? All right.
Or a temple.
Yeah.
Or That's what we're looking at.
Yeah. And then you have George Lombard hit 11 home runs in 1999. That's fun. We know him mostly as being the Tigers bench coach and having two very talented sons who are playing pro baseball. Or I guess his younger son is considered a top prospect for 2026. But and then Chip Cannon, who I do not remember at all.
No.
There you go. And then Josue Briseño. Never. So yeah, it's not the most inspiring list. And you could do the same thing with OPS. I don't know. The OPS, you've got Ricky Weeks. You've got Ken Harvey, who hit 479 one year in the AFL. I don't know. But then you're not far away from Chris Bryant and Acuna and things like that. So
sure,
time will tell. It's hard for me to get too worried about a 20-year-old who hasn't seen any action out of low A ball go to the AFL and be the first ever Triple Crown winner. Like I feel like that's a good thing. I don't want to be negative about it.
No, that's cool. I mean, it's a cool achievement for him. You just got to hope that this is not the high point of his career.
Yeah, and
we hope he's not the next Chip Cannon.
Yes, if you saw him or Tag Bozede, whatever it is. We'd have Mike Doyle here. He point out that the third baseman of Phillies, Alec Boehm, could be on the trade block. There have been rumors, that the Phillies may be looking to trade him and maybe looking to sign Bregman, which would be a perfect fit for the Phillies, honestly. I wanted the Tigers to draft Alec Boehm in 2018. He was my pick based solely on the fact that college third basemen tend to be the best players in each. Not the best players, but they tend to outperform their draft position more than anybody else. At the same time, he's not super exciting to me. I don't know what you guys think about Alec Boehm.
It's funny. I traded tweets with Joe Doyle the other day because he had mentioned him. And I just said that, hey, he's the kind of righty bat the Tigers, needing some power could potentially use. And he wrote back saying, well, not really a power bat. He's like a 15 home run guy. My answer to that was in Detroit, if he hits 18 home runs, he's practically Ruthian. Right?
Yeah.
But he's a guy who you feel like there should have been more, but what there isn't terrible. That's not the greatest thing on your resume. Yeah, he's not terrible.
Well, that's exactly the kind of guy that it feels like the Tigers are maybe looking for, right? Guy that's like, maybe there's something more there. Maybe they can squeeze more out of him. So, I mean, from that perspective, we've been talking a lot about front office and Scott Harris's MO. It almost feels like that does fit into what they're kind of maybe trying to do, right?
I remember there was another player at Wichita State that same time who was also a potential first-round draft pick. I want to say he ended up going to the Braves in like the second round and kind of washed out pretty quickly. But Boehm, for being like a 6'5" guy, he just doesn't. It seems like he decided basically to be more of a contact-oriented hitter. So he doesn't walk a ton. He doesn't strike out very much either. But it's more like 15 home runs last year. I think 20 maybe the year before.
Yeah, 20.
It's kind of a Matt Vierling profile, honestly, except he graded out pretty well, I think, at third base. You could play him at first base too, probably down the road. But I think he's only got 2 years left, this year, next year.
Right.
It would be an upgrade, but it's and it depends on what you're giving up, right? But it's not the sort of super sexy move that we talked about. But at the same time, I've made no secret that I'm not really sure if Jace Young is the future at third base. But if you want to give up Jace Young for Alec Boehm, I think that's probably doable. I don't know who do the Phillies have at second base.
Oh, you got me.
But in any event, it would be an upgrade and it would make the team a little bit better. It's just not. I don't think it's going to move the needle a ton.
Is he a win better than Matt Vierling?
I mean, so this year, 3.5 to Fangraphs and 3 to Baseball Reference. Let's see what was Vierling. Vierling was
2 something.
3 to Baseball Reference, and
Bryson Stott was
Bryson Stott and 2.5 to Fangraphs. Yeah, so Stott has been pretty solid for them for sure, I think. So
So if they're both roughly the same player next year, you gain them. You get it. If you believe in that kind of stuff, you gain a win maybe.
Yeah.
Well, but third base, they have to do something because I don't think I can think of really anyone that I know can play third base that's anywhere close to the major league roster. I think that because it feels like every guy who plays third base or second base is actually a second base and first baseman, respectively. So
yeah,
I just need to we talk about it all the time, and it's like it's one of my least favorite things to talk about because it's just so frustrating to think about. Like, got all these third basemen, but probably second or first baseman now. That's why I think it has to be third base. It's why even if Bohm isn't a sexy move, he would be an upgrade defensively. And I mean, I know people don't love Matt Vierling, but Matt Vierling is kind of the kind of player you're going to need. You need 3 or 4 Matt Vierlings on a good baseball team. So, I mean, I've been saying that all year. So he's not going to be like he's not going to be your star, but he could be solid.
Well, I mean, I've looked at it before. If you had a team of 9 Matt Vierlings, you'd win like 98 games.
Yeah,
it's the way it is. You have like a 2.5 to 3 WAR player, you're gonna. But obviously, nobody's ever done that. I wouldn't hate it. Again, it depends on what they give up. The other name that people have talked about, and we brought him up a couple months ago as part of our Good, Bad, and Ugly, was Jake Berger as a power hitting righty bat. That he's essentially what you hope Spencer Torkelson would be, like a 30 home run guy with not a ton of walks. He plays some third base. I don't think terribly well. He also plays first base. Again, you'd be trading for him. I think he's got several years left before he's a free agent. I want to say the White Sox traded him. Who'd they get back? They got Jake Eater, I think, the lefty pitcher or Vanderbilt pitcher. He'd be an interesting one. It's like you said, it's power and right-handed. That's what they need. But I don't know.
He's arbitration eligible. It says in 3 years.
He just seems all or nothing, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and that's okay. You can have a guy like that, But I think I'd almost rather bet on Alex Bohm and see if he has the breakout.
Yeah, I think I agree with you there. There's kind of a CJ Crone feel to the Berger there, where it's like, yeah, you're getting some power, not a whole lot else. You can argue that's what they need.
Yeah,
but I guess it always comes down to the price. The other,
I would take a crater of of a walk guy if he could hit 30, 35 home runs. At this point, it's just they really do need some power somewhere. That's why, even though I don't see it ever happening, I would love to see Santander here because I want what I feel is a for sure 30 home run guy, and they need that.
Yeah, I mean that'll be an interesting one. It'll be. I'm curious to see how many years and what kind of money he gets. You don't see him, kind of the crazy long contracts thrown out for him for whatever reason. The other option at third base, I guess, that's been thrown out there is Nolan Arenado. Rogelio and I talked about him the other day. I mean, he's still a great defender. He's he makes decent contact, but his power numbers took an absolute nosedive. And if you go to his Baseball Savant page, it's kind of scary. And he's making lots of money. So, I mean, you could probably acquire him for not much, theoretically. I don't know. I don't know how you guys feel about that.
It was scary watching him and Paul Goldschmidt drop off a cliff. Paul Goldschmidt's always been one of my favorite players just because nobody ever talked about Paul Goldschmidt being as amazing of a player he was for so long. But they both fell off a cliff. And honestly, I'm going to go a little smarmy here. If the Cardinals are ready to give up on him for nothing, then that tells me that he's going to be pretty hard to fix. Because if the Cardinals are saying, yeah, we can't do anything with him, then who can? I'll say it.
For whatever reason, I get that. I watched some Cardinal baseball this year, right? Because they're on here. I just get the sense it's going to be the tail end of Arenado's career is going to be Evan Longoria's career. The last few years where he was useful at times, but also had stretches where he was hurting the team, And I don't know if Arenado will get to that point, but that's just a sense I got of where that trajectory is going.
He batted almost exactly league average this year. That's crazy. 719 OPS, 101 OPS plus.
Yeah.
Super average.
Yeah, that's the I keep picturing him on the Dodgers for some reason. Now they have Max Muncy, right? But it's like what team could use a guy, a great defensive third baseman who doesn't offer a ton offensively? Well, it's the Dodgers. Like but then what do you do with Muncy? Because they already have Freeman and Ohtani and Betts and everybody else. But I don't know. It felt like that's a fit somehow. I don't know how they would work it or if it'll happen. But again, like going back to our discussion from half an hour ago, like acquiring the aging veteran who's owed a lot of money does not seem like the Scott Harris move. You never know. Like if the Cardinals want to pay half his salary or throw in prospects or something like that, then I'm sure Scott Harris would consider it. But otherwise, I don't see it happening.
So the other thing then was Scott Harris bringing up the idea, and again, could just be idle winter speculation of the Javier Baez, Trey Sweeney platoon.
Mm-hmm.
That fired up a lot of fans.
Yeah, well,
I feel like that was something we talked about quite a bit as a real possibility at the end of the year. Anyway,
Yeah, I don't think it doesn't shock me. I mean, we've mentioned it 30 times that no team has ever given up, just cut a player with 3 years and $74 million left. Like it just never happened.
Not gonna happen.
The one possibility there is, they keep talking about, we got to get Javi healthy. We got to get Javi healthy. Like they may be like, slipping the surgeon or whatever, a couple $100,000 to maybe do some permanent nerve damage or something like that. I kid, of course, but you know what I mean? Like they may be hoping for some sort of medical out a la Prince Fielder where like, you know what, he just can't medically play anymore. I don't think that's happening. And I don't mean to say that they would, purposely hurt or really want him hurt, but I don't think they're going to cut him. And so then you find, okay, what role do we have for him? Well, he can be our specialist against left-handed pitching.
Yeah.
And Sweeney's going to play the majority of the games because most pitchers are right-handed. And he's the young guy. You want to see more reps. And you do like, he performed fairly well against left-handed pitching. So you don't want to give away all his at-bats, but you need a big plate appearance against a lefty late in the game or a defensive replacement. Javier Baez could theoretically do that. And I think he's going to be the highest paid kind of platoon player in the league, but that's the way it's going to be because they're not going to cut him straight up.
I'm trying to check if he's actually better against left-handed pitching or not, or if that's just kind of what they have.
He wasn't this year. He hit 159 against left-handed pitching this year with a 16 WRC plus compared to a 51 WRC plus against.
Oh my God, those are Colt Keith April numbers right there, man. Wow.
Yeah, that is. But let's see. How about his career? Maybe last year he was just hurt. In his career, I forgot. Yeah, he has batted left-handed before. I guess right. He has 1 for 3 in his career with a double as a left-handed hitter. That's good fun. But yeah, in his career, 277 with 52 of his home runs against left-handed pitching for a career 117 WRC plus from against lefties versus 85 against righties. Doesn't necessarily shock me, given what's the Achilles heel of Baez was the slider away, right? Well, lefties aren't throwing them a slider away; they'll throw them change ups or drop a curveball in or whatever. But I don't know. I'm not saying it's going to be successful, but it doesn't shock me that they said they kind of hinted that that's going to be the plan because again, I don't. They're not going to go out and sign Willy Adames. So what do you do?
No, and unfortunately, you can't really do anything. That's what happens when you sign a contract for a guy that strikes out 2/3 of his at bats. I'm sorry, I'm just I'll never forget where I was on the Discord way back then, and I was just complaining about it the whole time. We were having a lively discussion. But anyway, I'm not gonna rag on Baez anymore. It's been years. We don't have to keep doing that. But I don't know. I think ultimately the platoons, like you said, it's not really a surprise. I think it's just something that nobody wants to hear. I think that people like to, maybe they're like me and they just kind of like to pretend that Javi's just not really on this team. Like when he showed up in the playoffs, it was like, this guy. No. So like I think that it just reminded everybody that we have a Baez-sized problem still, and that it's not going away. I don't know. Maybe we're a little bit more rational in knowing that he's not going anywhere, but I think just it's just being reminded that he's there is always gonna bring at least a little bit of an uproar out of people.
Yeah. No, I agree with it. Like it's one of those things where it would have been really awesome if he had worked out, because Javier Baez in his prime was very exciting and he had his warts for sure, but he made up for it with kind of spectacular plays. And then we got the warts and none of the spectacular for the most part. Although he did hit, one of the biggest home runs of the season last year, and that people kind of forget. Was it against the Seattle reliever?
Yeah.
Like what in the hell?
Munoz.
Yeah, and then he was gone. But I don't know. So yeah, that's there hasn't been any change really. Like all they came out and they said, yeah, this is where we are right now, because they haven't signed anybody, so they haven't changed plans yet. I remember heading into last season when Matt Vierling was going to be the starting third baseman, and then in spring training they signed Gio Urshela because he was cheap. So plans will change. I suppose we can talk a little bit about the awards, but it doesn't really matter. Cole Keith and Riley Green did not win their Silver Slugger awards. Riley Green did not get nominated for a Gold Glove. What else? AJ Hinch is up for Manager of the Year. I don't think he's going to win it. I think it's probably going to go to Stephen Vogt. Although Dan Szymborski he said he has a formula, and it's the most accurate formula possible for Manager of the Year is just wins. Whichever team won more games than they did the year before, the manager wins. It works out like 90% of the time, and that would be Quatraro from the Royals. So we'll see.
Oh well, yeah.
What else? Oh, I just saw Skubal was named the starting pitcher for the, whatever all MLB team, and he will be taking home.
Voted on the Athletic. Yeah, he was the starting pitcher for the all MLB team.
And
only player from the Tigers to make it in the last 3 seasons. So
yeah, it's nice.
Yeah,
you got Chris Sale, Skubal, Skeens, Wheeler, Burns, Class A, and Helsley. And with an offensive, Vlad Guerrero, Ketel Marte, Bobby Witt Jr., Jose Ramirez, Shohei Ohtani, William Contreras, Aaron Judge, Juan Soto, Mookie Betts. That's a decent team. They win some games.
Be all right.
And of course, Skubal won the Triple Crown. He will be winning the Cy Young. We'll see if it's unanimous or not. If somebody from Cleveland gives Class A the first place vote, we riot. But yeah,
funny.
well. Yeah, that's to a point, Kevin. Like, he said, so whoever manages the White Sox automatically will win Manager of the Year award next year. I think that there is, you still have to, I think, have a winning record.
Yeah, probably.
I don't think they give it to somebody who.
Not a bad thought though.
41.
Not wrong though.
Yeah.
Well, whoever manages the White Sox, they're going to automatically increase that win total by a crazy amount. They might. Did they hire? Yeah, I'm like, I was just reading that, and I'm like, they hired somebody, right?
I don't know. I did they? I thought that they had some names, including in Lombard.
Will Venable, yeah, they hired Will Venable.
Oh, Will Venable. Okay, well, it's it's nice for him to finally get a job. And then the Marlins hired somebody too. I think those were the only. The Reds hired Francona. I think those are all the jobs.
Mm-hmm.
Very very exciting managerial hires.
So something I was looking at. When you look around the division, the Tigers finished third place. Kansas City still doesn't have a TV deal.
Mm-hmm.
Signed a lot of free agents last year. Will they do it again? Minnesota has some ownership, flux right now. They might be selling, might not. how much are they going to invest? They cut payroll recently. So, Cleveland never spends. The White Sox, probably a non-factor for another couple of years. How much do the Tigers really need to invest to compete in this division?
I mean, you got Bobby Witt Jr. and Jose Ramirez, I don't know. It just doesn't sit right with me knowing that, like, two teams have a bona fide star. And while I like a couple of the Tigers pieces quite a bit, and we do have Skubal for the time being, like, we don't have that offensive star like they have. And I don't know. That always just, it's like a fantasy, and I hate bringing it up, but, like, if you just don't have one of the best players in that situation, it's never, like, necessarily a good recipe. Like, they're always going to have a guy that is completely dynamic and just better than anything you have. That's the incentive, I think.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you hope that Riley Green gets there. He's not going to be, 10-1 player like Bobby Witt or whatever. But
right.
I think he can be better than he was this year, and he was a 5-win player this year.
Absolutely.
So
yeah, he can be, but he just wasn't. That's all I was trying to say. At least
but the Royals did sign Michael Wacha to an extension. Despite not having a TV deal, it feels like they're willing to spend. They don't strike me as a player for, like, the biggest names, but I could picture them going and getting Jurickson Profar. He feels like a Royals player. I could even see them going and getting Santander, honestly. As a guy, I think I think they'd be willing to go, like, 5 years and 90 to 100 million, something like that for, maybe he wants more than that. Maybe he'll get significantly more than that. I don't know. But I think that they're going to improve. I just don't know because they are a team that doesn't necessarily have those internal reinforcements right now. Their farm system isn't great.
They're down a little, and you got Sal Perez, who's got another year of tread off the tires. At some point he's going to slow down.
Theoretically, yeah, but yeah, I mean, he did win a Silver Slugger over Cal Raleigh, I think, even though Raleigh played like
still 40 a great more player,
but Raleigh played like 40 more games at catcher. Seattle fans were quite upset.
Yeah, I believe it.
The only other thing I did want to touch on today, you kind of brought it up, was the TV stuff. There's been a couple TV things that the Tigers, there's an amended agreement with Diamond Sports, which is now FanDuel or whatever. FanDuel
Sports Network.
They didn't give us any details. We never really get details. The last I saw was an estimate that in 2022, the Tigers got $60 million from Bally that year for, and so this new deal you have to figure is less than that. Now, how much less is enough for the Tigers to accept? I don't know. I don't know if it's 30 million. Is it 40? Is it, like, who knows? They do get 60 million, I think, from the national deals too. So, and this is TV money before they play a game, before anybody buys a single ticket, before somebody buys a hat or a t-shirt or whatever, right? Like, so I don't think it'll have a huge impact on their spending, but I don't think that they will go out and spend $200 million on a player. But I don't think that was ever Scott Harris's plan. The other minor TV note was that the Tigers are going to be on primetime on opening day. Their first game of the year, they're playing the Dodgers. It's, I think, a 7 p.m. game in LA. So it's
I was trying to remember the last time they opened on the West Coast. It's been a while.
Yeah, that's a good question. I saw that the last time they were on ESPN on, like, opening day, whatever, was 2011. Now we can go through and look at their schedule to see when they open on the West Coast. But yeah, it's fun. They're playing the defending champs. There's, oddly enough, it's not the Dodgers' first game. They actually are playing in Japan. Against the Cubs a couple of games. But there's a non-zero chance that the Tigers are the first team to face Roki Sasaki, right? Like, I don't know if he would be there. He hasn't signed with the Dodgers. We haven't really talked about Roki Sasaki. He has apparently being posted, and I think every team has the chance to get him. But people were saying, he's going to go to the Dodgers, and the reports were like, well, not necessarily. He might not want to be with the Dodgers. I'm like, all right, yeah, we'll see. He doesn't want to play with Yamamoto and Ohtani.
No, why would he do that?
Yeah. Sure.
Somebody said he really wants to go somewhere where they really develop talent, and then of course a couple of Tiger fans like, yeah, Detroit.
Yeah. The Dodgers are pretty good at that too, right? Yeah, I
Yeah.
feel like the Dodgers. It's not fair. Like the Tigers are trying to do all this player development, and the Dodgers do that, and then also spend billions of dollars. But yeah, I don't want to tell people not to dream about Sasaki, but I do think it's only that it's a dream. I don't think.
Let them dream. Just when you're awake, realize that is not the reality. That is not.
Yeah.
I
wouldn't
just
put any money on it.
If he doesn't end up in with the Dodgers, he's probably going to be an Angel or a Mariner. The guys from Japan, they want to be on the West Coast because they'll be on back home, and you can't blame them. And that's kind of that's very cultural. From everything I've read about it and heard people talk, I mean that's at the forefront of their mind quite often.
Yeah,
is their home market, both financially and I think just personally.
Yeah, so I mean, it'll be fun. It's another super talented pitcher coming from Japan, and it's fun that he's foregoing, potentially millions of dollars to come here earlier. Although it worked out okay for Ohtani, but yeah, I don't know. Like I said, there's a chance that we could be watching, Trey Sweeney against Roki Sasaki on was it March 27th? I think it is.
Yes.
Who's the Tigers home opener against?
It's a good question. I don't know.
Let me look. 25 Tigers. I feel like they have two series on the road before they head home.
So that's fine. Let it warm up a little bit for opening day. I don't mind doing this.
I agree. So they're at the Dodgers and then at the Mariners, and then they come home against the White Sox. That'll work.
Oh, there you go.
Friday, April 4th.
Beautiful.
White Sox, then Yankees. So it should be fun.
So Dodgers, Yankees in the first 2 weeks of the season. That's a stout schedule to start their year.
All right.
Man, hottest team in baseball. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know if you guys have anything else to talk about. The one thing I did look at the other day, or I think earlier today, somebody was pointing out a quirk of Deion Sanders' old stats, and it just kind of cracked me up that this is a guy, a Pro Football Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
And I look at his 1997 season with the Cincinnati Reds when he hit 273 with 56 steals. Like what is this Pro Football Hall of Famer doing stealing 50 bases?
Yeah.
It's just dumb. And how many games was that? 115 games. Like man, why don't they
many
make
years there? He just dabbled in baseball and was good.
Yeah. Yeah, he had 14 triples one season in like 300 at bats. Yeah. 303 at bats, 14 triples, hit 304 in 1982. I don't know. It's just crazy. Sometimes it's fun to remember some guys.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I guess, Raj never did make it. I get it. It's been a long day of work. I don't know when we're coming back. Again, like this was just kind of felt like we needed to check in with you guys. Thanks to everybody who's listening and watching. What's this? We got, here we go. We got a final comment here from Matt Wood. I read comments today about thinking at some point the MLB getting rid of the AL and National League and having regional conferences. Any thoughts? Oh boy, we're getting deeply into nerd territory where I've done this before, and when I was younger and as an adult, where you like, let's add 2 expansion teams and build 8 new conferences or 8 new divisions.
Yeah.
And I mean, for all intents and purposes, the American League and National League don't exist anymore now either, right? Like all the rules are the same. They used to have different umpires and everything.
Oh, different strike zones.
Different strike zones, different presidents or commissioners, right? Or it was presidents, right?
Presidents, yeah.
It's all the same now. So they could redo everything. And we've seen a couple times in the last 20, 25 years where teams just switch leagues. The Brewers and the Astros have like, I guess we'll be National League. It's, okay, all right, go for it. Yeah.
Back in the day, not to get into umpiring, but I love umpiring. I think it was the NL. They were wearing the inside chest protectors, and they had the lower strike zone, and the AL umpires still had the balloon on the outside, so they had a higher strike zone because they were down, weren't down as far. So everything was different.
Yeah. That. I mean, the other thing was I saw that Dave Sims is moving from the Mariners to the Yankees to do their broadcasts, and then. That's I'm sure that's a great throw for him, and it's kind of a bummer for Mariners fans probably. And then the other thing was that the Tampa Bay Rays They won't be able to play at their home park, but they are playing in Tampa. And it was, I joked with my buddy. I'm like, why? They should probably just play at Steinbrenner Field, which is where the Yankees have their spring training and where the Tampa Tarpons play in the Florida State League. And that's what they're doing. It's a stadium. It's outside, so that's going to be a bummer. But it seats like 10,000, 11,000 people, and that's probably all the Rays need.
Yeah, probably.
So that'll be interesting to see that. But it'll be like that. What was the year? The Blue Jays, right? They had to play in. They're playing in Buffalo. Yeah. So
that's happened before. Like the Yankees in the 70s, they played at Shea Stadium for a couple of years while Yankee Stadium was being refurbished. That kind of stuff. So from time to time in baseball, this has happened over the years. But I saw good laughs. The desperate Yankees are getting another $15 million in revenue from this move. So they'll be able to. They'll be able to keep the lights on.
They can afford, mats for their cars. But all right, yeah. Well, if we don't, if nobody else has anything else to add, I mean, we've done a good hour and 15 minutes talking about nothing, so that's always impressive. Yeah, hope everybody's enjoying their fall so far, getting ready for the holiday season. Haven't listened to too much Christmas music so far, but
oh my God, I went into a convenience store today. And I was just like, why do I feel like my ear is bleeding a little bit? Because Mariah Carey is playing. That's why. And blacked out a little bit, and I woke up, and I was home, and I was like, I guess we got to start this podcast now.
Well, here in Iowa, today was the day the local station switched to all Christmas music.
Yeah.
104.1.
There you go. It begins. Yeah, they traditionally do it. It's always done on the day that a Tigers prospect claims the Triple Crown in the Arizona Fall League. That's
right.
It's one of the great traditions. So yeah, everybody, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. We'll obviously do more shows if and when things happen. But for now, just kind of keep an eye out on your Facebooks and your Twitters and your YouTubes to see. And we'll talk to you soon. Everybody, have a good week and stay classy.